They need my name.
And since we have a member of the public, do you want Julianne to listen to that since you guys can't comment or act? Or do you want to do that? We can ask her a specific question. Yeah.
I mean, you want to start her in, then she'll be on. I don't know whether she'll be able to hear.
That's what I told her. I'm like, well, we can go ahead and, yeah, we can. Okay, you guys want to go ahead and call your meeting to order?
Yeah, meeting is hereby called to order at 5:05 on March. Hey Julianne, this is Guy.
Hi, how are y'all?
We're good. We have you on speakerphone now.
Oh, I should be there in 15 minutes. I apologize.
Okay, so we were just going to dial you in and have you listening in. We've opened the meeting and we're about to ask for public comment.
Okay.
So welcome everybody. It's great to see quite so many people here. So does anybody have any public communication or comment? This is your opportunity to ask any questions, speak up, air things out.
I'm Teresa Gretchen. I'm a homeowner in 1B, and I'm just here to express my support for reinstating the homeowner exemption to the maximum percentage allowed.
You're in 1D?
B.
Oh, 1B. Do you want to share the reason for that?
I've just been following along. A lot of comments have been made on Nextdoor, and I agree that homeowners should get the discount and not the people that are renting out their properties or any type of commercial. I know there's not much commercial, but I believe there's something CoServe pays, and I don't know who else, but I'd like for businesses and those that are renting out the properties to pay a full amount, and for homeowners that are actually living in the neighborhood to get any kind of discount possible. Encourage homeownership and not losing out the house.
Okay. So that is on the agenda, so we will be talking about that later on.
Okay.
Lisa, can I get a little?
Oh, here, sorry.
Okay. Anybody else have any public comments? Anything else you want to raise? In that case, we'll close the public communication and move to the next item on the agenda.
Hey, Guy, can I make a request? Would it be all right if we did the 1A report? It seems like there's a lot on the security committee tonight. If we did the 1A report before that.
I think that's. We want to do that now?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Are you ready?
Waiting on you.
I was waiting for the normal, yeah.
Round of applause.
Yeah, where's the cue?
Bigger intro than that. Here's Phil.
Okay, I think it's on page 8, is the executive summary that has revenues. You're familiar with that. This is through January, so we're through 33% of the budget. Revenues range high of 68 and low, and the highs, District B collected a one-time tax payment because of their refinancing, so that's why they're 68% instead of 33%. And some of the others that are low had developer payments that they made, so that's why the revenues vary. Major revenue sources, water and sewer collectively were 4.36% ahead of last year through 4 months. Permits, we're behind by 42%. I'll go in greater detail on that in a minute. And property taxes was still 1 month not reported. We're at 103% of our budgeted amount collected, or 103% over last year at this time. The graphs in the middle, as you know, we split water and sewer 5.3 or 13% ahead of last year for water only, and 2.98 ahead for sewer. The next graph is permit revenue, and the straight line average, as you know, last year's blue is actual, and this is through 4 months. Property taxes, you can see the collections, and this is not representative of February, it's only through January, and so we've got 1 more month to probably collect the ad valorem taxes. to report that. And then the next page, is that page 9 on your screen? So again, we're 33% through the year spent. So far, we spent 28.2. Last year at this time, we were 28.44 through 4 months. The only department that's in excess of 33% is parks, and as you know, we kind of jumped out and repaired several of the parks significantly, and so that's why we're a little bit ahead of that, a little bit ahead of the 33%. Going to the water and sewer report, I'm not sure what page, Patrick, that is, but with the blue and the salmon color.
Page 11.
Page 11. As you know, in the dark blue, it's actual to actual. So we're 5.13% ahead of actual through 4 months last year. The light blue is actual versus budget, so we're 4.08 ahead of what we had budgeted through 4 months. Same vein, sewer in the salmon color, we're 2.98 ahead of last year through 4 months, and we're less than 0.01% variance off of our budget through 4 months for sewer. If you jump to permits, there were 4 permits in B, and they're detailed at the bottom of the page, arbors and water heaters. The graph for permits on page 13. Yeah. You can see that we're lagging behind in our projections. You know, we just do a straight line average because permits are very volatile as far as predicting them. We did have a peak this month in February, and so we're catching back up. I still am optimistic, and I'll show you on the board some of the activity that's happening that will meet our $3.1 million budget for the year. Just happening, some of the commercial has started later, and some of the lots weren't developed, or weren't ready, and so we're a little bit behind on some of the starts. If you look at the single-family lot permits, that through 4 months, we permitted 54 single-family homes, 18 of them last month in January, or the month of January, the 4th month, versus 23 last year. And so collectively, last year we had permitted 62 homes, and this year we're 54. But we're catching up with some of the construction activity. I'll just real quickly in the rundown. So in District G, which is yellow, you've got the Kroger store, and the 3 retail buildings are virtually full. You've got McDonald's now under construction. There's rumor of users that would be on the west of Kroger, maybe large users such as Lowe's or someone, but I've not seen anything. The pink is District F with Target. Studio Movie Grills right here, Target's there. There's construction activity on the vacant parcels behind Rockfish. There's a daycare center under construction here. And then, as you know, there are 379 lots that split basically District F and G. Over 100 of them are either occupied under construction or completed. And I'm optimistic that, you know, over the next 12 months, that should be pretty well sold out.
So the residents in 1G at this point?
Pardon?
There's residents in 1G at this point?
Yes, a few. I don't know how many have taken occupancy, but both Highland Homes and American General are building up here. And so some of them are 41-foot lots and some of them are 50-foot lots. The 20 acres of retail fronting the freeway up here with Coulter's Barbecue and some other users, all of those are either under construction, occupied, and Starbucks is permitting as we speak for the last parcel they call F3. And so all 20 acres of retail should be completed shortly. In G, you've got Platinum 1 apartments, Platinum 2, and then the retail corner here, Aldi is closed on the corner for a small grocery store. You have, I think, a total of 7 retail pads. 6 of the 7 are either under contract. 1 is even under construction. Caliber Collision is under construction. And so that's pretty active. Kind of just coming across west, you've got District H, which has Discovery at the Realm, 422 apartments. First occupants would be mid-April for the luxury apartments, and that's the first development in District H. Coming over, you got Daniel's Dental Clinic. This is District F, which is under construction at Essex and 121. You have some platting of more residential on this tract that looks kind of like the state of Oklahoma, with some retail here on the corner of Castle Hills. So that could come on this year. Coming around, you've got 4 medical buildings. One's under construction. One other has been permitted. I haven't seen them start construction. But on Parker Road, which as you know is under improvement now by TxDOT with about a 36-month completion target. The Parker Road Medical is under construction, and I think they're permitting another one. G is over here with Racetrack. It's an office park. There's a 250,000 square foot office building being designed for a parcel here on the south portion of District G. Kind of coming back here, you got the 94 villas that are phase 2 villas. The 64 have been pretty much sold out that are near the golf course. I understand Singer Ranch or Nichols and Dime was in the paper or something or announced, as I've mentioned before. Our district really doesn't have anything to do with that. That's in the city of Farmers Branch, Carrollton. Say.
That's not going to be part of Castle Hills?
No.
No.
I mean, it may be named Castle Hills something. We don't have anything to do with that, but it won't be connected to any of our water or sewer. There may be some streets that connect, but it's a city of Carrollton. I think there is a PID that Ross can speak to, but it's not a PID through the city of Louisville or anything that the district has anything to do with.
That's owned by the developer.
It's the same developer, it'll probably be branded as Castle Hills, but as far as financing all the facilities and stuff, it has nothing to do with water and all our stuff.
Coming down here, you've got what was called the Burnt Track. It's now been incorporated in District C, Charlie, and 177 lots. They've renamed Standridge now as Holy Grail all the way out to Hebron Parkway. 177 lots, all 50-foot lots, 12 houses sold in the first week, probably in the $400,000 to $500,000 range. And the first model home is ready, just waiting on power. So it's, but they're under construction with 12 houses on this first east-west street.
As far as layout, there's going to be similar to what we see over behind the hospital over there.
I think the houses are going to be similar. It's pretty much just east-west streets and then kind of north-south. And then there's a park that's kind of in this northwest corner.
Okay.
And that'd be 177 lots, all 50 foot.
Those are all American Legend as well?
No,
Shattuck.
Shattuck, yeah. Yeah.
So it's a mix of builders or all Shattuck?
Shattuck has, I think, about a third of the homes, and I think American Legends has 2/3.
And then the park you mentioned, is there going to be access to that park right off of Holy Grail, or will it be walled in? Do you know?
I think it'll be walled in. The access will be from this walking trail that comes behind, the houses at front, Holy Grail. And so there's a walking path that goes behind that house, and my understanding there'll be a connection there. And so if but they would have to come down to the entrance, and I'm 60%, sorry to say 90%, but I'm 60% sure that. So you would have to come through there, through the park, and come out one of the open entrances. It won't be a gated community. So that's it, unless there are other questions.
Has there been any movement on the Lynn underpass on the rail in Louisville?
Well, we have gotten an update, and the update's not much different than I got a year ago. And I think they are moving some utilities. They've gotten all of the right-of-ways they needed, and they're in a design phase, but they can't design the bridge until the railroad approves something. So, everything has to be approved first before they can start in the design. So I'm thinking it was originally like a 2018 timeframe, Doug, but, and to my knowledge, it hadn't changed much, but it is moving ahead glacially.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Phil.
We got another couple hours to go, Phil. You shouldn't want us to hang out. No? Okay.
Any other, you want me to stay for any other portion?
I'm good.
Unless you don't, you know, rather.
Okay.
What are we gonna do next, Lisa? Do we need to
Would you
move things around?
Well, we'll probably go ahead and move things around. Did you want to accept Bill's report?
Oh, yeah, motion.
Absolutely.
Second by Patrick, second by Noel.
All in favor?
It should be probably fairly close, that's what I'm wondering. So would you like to do, we can do accounting report, we can do the tax collection report, which is always exciting. And there's your turn. Or you can just do whatever you want to do. We also have your auditor here. Are you flying back tonight, Joseph?
I am, but I'll wear around.
You want to do that while I'm here?
If you guys want to, that might be a good
Yeah,
idea.
maybe we do the audit while I'm here. We won't release.
Item is number, audit is number 10. There's one chair there if you want to go.
Let me stand.
Or,
I'll just stand. It's good. That's it all day. All right, how's everybody doing? My name is Joseph Hello, McCall, Gibson, Smith, and Barfoot. I believe in the past, Brian Bolden usually comes down here and presents. He's really just a presenter. I'm the one that does all the work, just to set the record straight. Absolutely. So Brian, put in the minutes and everything. All right. Pass out a copy report. You should have been emailed out in advance, so hopefully everybody get a chance to look at it. I'll give a brief presentation. Feel free to stop me if you have any questions. Start pages 1 and 2 of the report. Pages 1 and 2 is the audit opinion. We're issuing a modified opinion, which is a clean opinion. It's the same opinion received in the past, no different. After that, pages 3 through 6 is what we call the management discussion and analysis. This is a summary of the district's financial status. I recommend everybody reading these few pages here. After that, turn to page 12 with me.
Page 12.
Page 12. Page 12 is what we call the statement of activities, also known as your income statement. Including that first column on page 12 is your general operating fund. For the fiscal year, the general operating fund collected total revenues about $1,778,000. Incurred total expenditures about $2,120,000, which resulted in a decrease in your fund balance this year by about $342,000, resulting in an ending fund balance of $758,000. The decrease this year pretty much had to do with the developer payback, about $334,000, as well as decreasing your water rates this year. So I would say that would be the reason for the decrease. The next column is debt service fund. You had total revenues about $1,662,000. You incurred total expenditures about $2,740,000, which resulted in a decrease in the debt service fund of about $1,078,000, sorry. Which resulted in ending fund balance of $1,499,000. Decrease in debt service fund had to do with selling refunding bonds. You made a $1 million contribution towards that to reduce your debt, and your total fund balance is more than enough to meet the reserve requirements by the state. I believe the reserve requirements are just over $1 million, so you get a good, $400,000 in excess.
Okay. So Joseph, we're back on the general fund.
Yes, sir.
And they had revenue of $1,077,000. And then expenditures of about $2,001,000. If we take out the repayment to the developer, we're very close to breaking.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
okay, your developer payment was the $196,800. And then the $62,270, I believe we had 2 actual payments under the letter of credit settlement, but the actual timing of your easement revenues would have been actually in prior years. So you only had essentially 1 payment's worth of revenues during the year, 2 payments worth. So there's a timing difference there, had you making essentially that double payment. So $260,000 approximately is what the extra payments were. $340,000 is the variance. So that $80,000 is essentially the timing of us reducing the utility payments and then the other bills that went out, which is kind of where we want to be.
And with those payments, you pretty much wiped out all your long-term debt. There's no more amounts due to the developer at this time.
So, and that was one of my comments in the notes. Can we get something added in the notes that if there's no further payments due to the developer?
I think when I read it, it was
There is a comment there saying that we paid the total amounts in full in the current fiscal year.
Under the agreements, wasn't it?
There's two places in there. I believe they're in note 9.
I thought I saw somewhere where it detailed out the developer lawsuit. And
Right, and then it talks about these payments were paid in full during the current fiscal year. So there is a sentence for each amount stating that we did pay in full.
I think one final, like if there was somewhere else, just like one final, there were no additional.
Yeah, that was kind of my comment, because I had it in note 9 and there was another note, and, I'd like to see just a general note that there's no further amounts due to the developer.
I can say there was no
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. I'd just like to reflect that we paid off everything
Okay.
that we're aware of.
Right,
We'd like happy face.
I can add that.
Happy face.
Yes.
the full numbers will probably all figure out full numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I suspect the developer will get a happy face too. Yeah, that's all around happy faces,
You
yeah.
know, I think there are plenty of developers who don't get every dollar back, so, you know.
Okay, after the income statement are the notes, which are on pages 15 to 32. All the notes, same as last year, just updated current year information. The note number 9 discusses the amounts due to developer, that's where I'll add some. It'll be in the final reports. And after the notes, if you turn to page 34 with me. Page 34 is the budget to actual comparison, so the general operating fund. Look at the far right column, this is the variance column. For the year, total revenues were $84 more than what was budgeted. Total expenditures came in over budget by about $380,000, which resulted in any fund balance about $380,000 less than we should have budgeted. That has to do with the amounts paid to developers. That was not part of your budget. Any questions concerning the audit?
I have a question, just trying to work through the math here. On note 9, there's a statement there that the amount from the dispute was almost $670,000. I was trying to just do quick math to add up how much do we actually want to pay out of $690,000 in the settlement agreement. What do we want to pay the developer?
Probably have to actually pull out, I think the settlement agreement that Matt Malash worked out actually explained it. There were some items where we did, 50%, I think it was. Then there was a couple other items that we paid a different amount of, because they were obvious items that would have normally.
Yeah,
been
there's-
included.
You want me to resend that to you, because Matt did break that out?
Yeah, that'd be
Okay.
great.
There's a breakup in there, but in the end, the total amount that we did pay was $262,000. Is what we paid, which it states that at the end of that paragraph, then on page 31, we put the table in there of the district's estimated payment plan.
Right, and I guess that's where the math didn't seem right to me. There's $690 to the developer. I know we didn't pay all of that, but it seemed like it was, we paid more
I
than
think that was their demand, and then I think during the course of settling, there were 3 or 4 different settlement things. There were a lot of items we settled on 50%.
Okay,
So-
yeah, I'd love to get that, yeah, okay, yeah. I know you sent it before, but I've long since filed that somewhere, I'm sure it is.
Any other questions, thoughts, comments?
So I sent you a note before the meeting about the non-potable water charge.
Yes, sir. I do believe there is an agreement. Like I said before, I believe it's dated back in the 90s. I have to double check that. I do believe there is an agreement.
Can we put a note in related to that, please?
I believe
Basis
it's,
for that charge.
I can look at it and see if that's something we do need to add. I believe it's all kind of inclusive as part of your operating agreement. Then there's a separate, is it in the water note? I'll look at it, Guy, and get back with you. Oh yeah, there it is. Page 28. Page 28, second last paragraph. It discusses non-potable water right here.
The second one. Okay.
There's a little little paragraph about it, that you do have an agreement with Upper Trinity. Or the whole thing, I'm sorry, the whole note there.
So we do have a contract for that?
Yes.
Do you have a copy of that?
Well, no, it was a contract with the original district in Upper Trinity before the district subdivided.
Correct, which is,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
it's
which
in
is
one
a
of
lot
the
of these
notes in
water.
the 1995.
Yes, I do have a 95 agreement. So do you need a copy of that?
Yeah, it's notes.
I was looking through the non-potable agreements on the website and I didn't find anything that related to 1B. So
Okay, it predated the existence of 1B, and Ross, jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was originally with the original district before it subdivided out, correct?
Right, it was District 1, which is all of Castle Hills.
I have that.
I guess the piece that I'm struggling to understand is there seems to be an agreement between 1A with 1C for the provision of non-potable water, but there doesn't seem to be anything relating to 1B. That was the piece I was trying to understand.
Okay, I'll have to look, I don't have it with me. but
You know, the concern is the same one we've talked about for a long time, that we charge $53,000 for non-potable water and we don't use any of that water.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficulty that we have in a lot of districts, trying to use up that non-potable water. I mean, the good news is the 30-year contracts, we don't have a lot left to go from 1995, but, we've struggled with that for a long time, how to use up this water that we contracted for 21 years ago.
Any questions?
I have a question. So all of the water that is like sprinkling all of the common areas that homeowners don't own, is it divided into sections also? Or is it all out of one thing that goes to the water district?
So,
Like the watering, like on Windhaven, all of that, is all of that in one section, like all of the common areas?
so it's a question, if we have a park that's in 1B and 1B, and that park is
Is all
sprinkled,
of it
is that,
together?
yeah, is that divided out equally among, how's that allocated, I guess is what you're.
How is that allocated? Because I'm out at sometimes 4 o'clock in the morning and the sprinklers are just shooting straight up, water running everywhere. Nobody's even caring about the sprinklers or the water that's being wasted. So that is a concern as a consumer. I mean, there's kids that don't even have any water to drink and it's just flying up in the air. Nobody's taking care of the sprinkler heads. So that's.
We have a contract with that water saving company, right?
Yeah, some of the heads that you're talking about, if it's in a gated community, then the association manages that.
No, like right off of Windhaven that goes down up to Old Denton, all of that area. I mean, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, they're busted and it's crazy.
Yeah, in the
The
last
waste
year,
of
we've
water.
had, in the last 12 months, because of the drought and then the flood,
Mhm.
it's all PVC pipe and you have expansion of soil, I don't have to tell you. And so we've had a lot of repairs, even mainline repairs.
Right.
And so we also have a notice on the website, I think, and then a number for people to call and report if we've responded to that.
Mhm.
And we have a contract now with a company that manages some of it wirelessly. Some of it's non-potable. We're recycling water out of Lake Avalon. And we've converted some of them to wireless management. So if there is a break, we have an alarm, so we know it immediately instead of, so we are becoming more sophisticated and better at managing it. We've saved 31 million gallons in the last 12 months, or about the last year, by managing our irrigation water.
But just in the last month, just seeing now the season is changing. There's so many broken heads that need to be fixed and it's so early that people aren't even out and they're completely unaware.
How do we do that? And is there a way to turn those all on at centrally at 1 in the afternoon and go out and inspect those, or we just have to wait until people have to on those?
I was driving out of my driveway this morning, they're going off, didn't have time to stop. So it's almost a daily type thing. And really some of the best is that people either calling in or texting in or, and then we report that. Usually it's repaired, it's the same day repair. But it's been it's been exacerbated because of the strange weather we've had.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mine too. I've had
Yeah.
so many breaks in my own, so.
Yeah.
So let me ask you,
Makes you feel better.
so it sounds like maybe one of the options we have here is to better publicize what to do when you see one of these broken heads.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can certainly, I go next door sometime, but.
I've heard that.
Hey, Fred, yes, I guess,
Yeah.
So I'll make a note to myself.
Sometimes it's kind of.
So it's a good idea, if a homeowner wants to report that, they just call the main number.
Yeah, they call the main number and we also, I don't know if you've implemented it, but try to have some kind of flag on the website where, you know, particularly as we come into spring, because in January, February, for the most part, they've been turned off.
Right.
And so,
Right, so I was just curious about if it's all considered the same, or if it's separated
no,
into
it's all,
different.
it's all
Okay.
same and then allocated.
Okay,
Yeah, based on property tax values.
Right. Where were we?
All right.
Sorry.
Audit.
Any other questions concerning the audit?
Yeah, where were we, Joseph?
County questions?
Joseph and I
Those are good questions.
confirmed, and while you guys are here, page 32, note 12. We always are talking about when the audit is finished, we'll true up with Gen 1A. And at the end of the year, we always allow the auditor to do this final number. You'll remember there was about 14,000 1A owed to us for 2014, but because the audit has been done a little later in the year, I don't believe we've actually settled that amount yet.
Correct.
So this amount shown on note 12 says $90,080 recording a liability to 1A, that means we owe them. So if we paid the 90,000, that trues up for the year, which is about what we had kind of anticipated. We just never wrote the check. So I think when we get to the bookkeeping report later on, we might consider an extra check. Not the next meeting, if you wanted to wait till your audit was final, but Joseph said that number is.
Yeah.
It's a good number,
It's a good
that's, okay.
That's, I think, very similar. I think when I looked at it, it was like 89,
Mhm.
so.
So are all the districts done now?
Yes, all district reports were presented last week, or were accepted by the board last week for any final comments before we finalize in the next meeting. Yes, all reports are planned to be completed in the city by the end of March.
Do we need the TCQ
No, sir.
guidelines? Not
No,
yet.
February 12th.
Closer though.
We're closer.
We're going
That's why
right
I've done 2 audits within 6 months.
Okay.
But yes, we will make the continued disclosure deadline without any issue as far as I know.
I talked to Brenda Martin with
Yeah,
the
we
city of
provided some
Louisville
drafts, yeah.
on Monday, and so, as after tonight's meeting, if the board approves, I told her I would send her this draft and then the
Right.
final once it was available, so she knows it's coming.
She's been provided all the other drafts, so she's aware of it and aware of it. We're, you know, it's been presented and received, but in case there are comments like you have, you know, then those could be incorporated and then it'll be approved at the next board meeting. So she has all the drafts.
Okay, any questions on the audit? Motion to approve the audit,
Motion.
second,
This is with notes.
as with the comments incorporated. So motion by Noel, second, Sonia, all in favor?
All right, thank you very much. I have one letter for all the board's final pass now.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna move down to item 13A and open back up discussion on the homestead exemption. If y'all recall, and I'm sure a lot of people are aware, the board voted to remove the homestead exemption at its meeting on February 3rd. And I think there's been some feedback from the community.
Yeah.
So I'd like to open that up for discussion.
So there was a great activity back and forth on next door.
Or just send me a signature page or whatever.
some great discussion next door. It wound up actually being, and I was afraid of this. This is, it wasn't as transparent as we hoped it would be. I mean, the message got out there, I think, in a good way. But this is the whole concept of if you're explaining, you're losing. And having to go through, I mean, Clay Bright actually did some pretty good analysis as well. The delivery mechanism is blunt, but I think his numbers are actually not in question. So I appreciate his feedback. So I guess at issue here is a couple things. So one is that if we go through and we leave the homestead exemption as it is right now, I think we're going to find that we are forcing our neighbors into a kind of a savings account, which means that their escrows will most likely go up a bit, and then at the end of the year, they'll get a check back from their escrow account for excess.
And that'll be for this 1 year.
For this 1 year.
It'll be
That's right.
back.
So I guess we have a couple of options here. One is to consider rolling it back entirely, put it back at 20%. Two, leave it as is, let things roll out as they are. Or three, roll it back for now and then put it back after the escrow estimates are out to where nobody has a forced savings account. I think you had a comment during the opening, Teresa, sorry, okay, about the homestead exemption. You want to state that again?
I just was saying that I was here in favor of having it as the maximum amount to provide a discount to homeowners that actually live in the neighborhood and have people who are leasing out their homes or any businesses that we have in 1B pay the maximum amount that they can instead of the homeowners.
Okay. So don't disagree, those numbers are pretty small. And I asked this to everybody here, that's I think the board, but looking for feedback all over. So we had, I think by Clay Bright's estimate, 78 homeowners that didn't declare homestead exemptions. And then the question becomes, are those all rentals, or are they people like one of the ladies who had difficulties with the decision to remove the homestead exemption? She just didn't file homestead exemption because for years she didn't know that she could. So how many of these people do we think are people that are renting, and how many of these people do we think are, yes?
No,
Oh.
no, we have the information. Lisa
Okay.
was able to
Oh, good.
ascertain that after we
Great.
traded emails,
Good.
so. 668 parcels listed as real residential, single-family homes, and then 1 condo and 20 homes listed for a total of 689 homestead qualifying units. The next page of the tax roll shows that 611 units have filed for a homestead exemption and 78 units do not have a homestead exemption in place. So 88.68% of the homes have a homestead exemption.
And those match up with what Clay's numbers were as well, so.
And so why someone wouldn't have filed their homestead exemption if they have some other reason, we have no way of discerning. You have to go talk to 78 people and figure out, do you rent? Or do you have some reason why you've not filed this?
Right, and that's the
We don't really
question.
get into it, we just know for the purpose of levying a tax, there are 78 people who will pay a higher tax if there is a homestead exemption than not. So whether they have a reason for not doing it or didn't understand the paperwork, we don't
Or
know.
didn't even know it was available.
That's-
By looking at my neighbors, we have neighbors that are from all walks of life in different countries, and the concept, if I went over to some other country and there was some sort of special exemption for my house, I might not know about it either.
But that's a different outreach thing, you deal with that with your title company, you can go talk to the tax assessor, you can, when you get the forms in the mail. I mean, that is, I would say, if you wanna send out paperwork, a mailer to try to, educate people on the things, that's a whole different thing, so the number might go up.
So I guess that for the consideration of everybody here is
That's a separate problem.
the 7, I think they're related though, because, the assertion has been, all 78 of those are probably rentals, and we're basically giving them a break. I'm saying, well, I don't think so, I don't know what the number is.
Well,
So we could
and-
decide that it's so small as to not make a difference.
Well, and the rule could also, I don't know exactly all the rules off the top of my head, but I don't know if you have to live here a majority of the time, if it's not your primary residence for taxing purposes, can you not claim it? I'm not certain exactly. I know I qualify, so I checked the mark box and sent it years ago, and I haven't looked at it since. So, I would say that the majority of time when I'm looking at them, it is because they are legitimately not homestead exemptions. I would say that the number of people you might find maybe 5 or 6 people who should qualify. So they're not going to be a significant taxing entry. It's significant for them, but they're not going to be a significant portion of your tax revenue levy
So
decision.
why this is important, and I think this is relevant, at least in my mind, is that if there was, 80 neighbors that said, I just didn't know, that it comes back down to the ease of living in an area. So if we have 80 neighbors that say, I'm being taxed and I didn't realize that benefit, that to me would be an argument for moving the homestead exemption. If we're saying that, those are probably going to be renters anyway, or there's enough information out there that, you should have known to do this, then that's an argument to say, okay, well, maybe we keep the homestead exemption in place. So that's part of my consideration when I think about homestead exemption, whether it should stand or not.
I'd like to look back to why I thought we should do it in the first place, and that was, if you look at Castle Hills today, I think it's a 15% exemption, not 20.
Yes, 15%.
And then a higher tax rate.
Yeah.
There's some value, and presumably home values go up to some extent if it's a simpler, easier to understand system with a lower headline tax rate.
Right.
And I believe that having no exemption and a lower tax rate actually boosts the value. I can't say how much it boosts the value, but I think it makes our homes more competitive compared to, say, Carrollton. Right now, people look at our tax rate and they say it's higher than Carrollton, and that dissuades them, gives them some reason to think about not moving to Castle Hills. If we can advertise a lower tax rate, then I think to some extent it boosts the values of our homes.
Well, in addition, there was also discussion that the city of Louisville does not offer a homestead exemption either. And that at some point, there is a extremely high likelihood that Louisville will annex and dissolve the district in addition to the other districts, and there would not be a homestead exemption offered.
So the other aspect of this is the commercial real estate. I think the place number was 2.5 million, which seems like a lot, but it's about 1% of the 268 million, whatever was in the, I just read the audit report, 250 plus million. So that's 1% if it's 2.5 million. And then if you kind of work that math, even if it all went away, that's about $20,000 in sales tax. But it's not all going away, it's just a percentage of that's going away. So it's something less than 20,000. It's property tax, yes, is right. So all those are the kind of things that played into this decision. I'm going to state that part of being a board member in my mind is listening to our neighbors and the residents in the 1B district, and if it's confusing, and they all say we still want a homestead exemption, I think we should listen to that. And I think what I've heard is nobody's come out and said, yes, thank you so much for getting rid of the homestead exemption. It makes it so much easier. What I have heard are, a couple people out there that have once taken the time to come to the meeting, and a couple that have reached out to me on next door that said, it wasn't broke, I wish you guys hadn't fixed it. So that's kind of where I'm coming down. So I just put that as a point of conversation, so if anybody wants to chime back in. The cheese stands alone over here.
There's not much of a difference either way.
I can make an argument for either side.
It's, I don't know, I understand, her point, but it's,
I'll make a quick point since y'all are letting.
Sure, absolutely.
The difference here for me, I can see all your points about the transparency and whatever. The difference here for me is the check that I write is gonna be higher or lower. And that's what matters to me is the money. Is it gonna cost me an extra $100? It's not that much, but I've lived here 15 years. That's a lot of money.
So
You start with your 15 more.
So let me ask you this, so if that homestead exemption was, so the whole idea is not to get away with homestead exemption and then not reconcile that back with the lower tax rate. The idea is that at the end of, August, unfortunately, because of the way Texas works, you can't set both these things at the same time. If we could, it's a non-issue and there's no, the out-of-pocket bill is exactly the same. Is the concept of, really, because of the way the timing works out, there's going to be, you're going to get dinged in escrow. And you're going to wind up having to pay a little bit more and then get to wait a year to get that money back again.
That's not my issue. I understand that when you have the exemption, you have to raise, or lower the taxes to figure it and balance
Right.
out. But my point is that if you're not giving me a discount over the small amount of renters and commercial property we have, that over time, I pay more money and they pay less money. And I would rather they pay more money for running a business, which is a rental property or whatever else, and then I pay less money for being a homeowner and living in the neighborhood. And I know it's not a huge amount,
Sure.
and I understand, that Louisville doesn't have the exemption, but to be honest, when I compare my house in value, I go look at Carrollton, and I see Carrollton has the exemption, and you know, I know how to figure out, you know, my father was thinking of moving from Castle Hills to Carrollton. I know how to figure out what the real tax rate is. It's not difficult math. And I think that if you put something in the gatekeeper that says, hey, if you file for your homestead exemption, you know, that you're gonna catch some of the people who might not know about it, that came from another state or whatever. But really, it's up to them. They could say, well, I didn't know that I had a homeowners association that said I couldn't paint my fence pink, so give me a break. But that's not gonna fly. You know, you have to know the rules when you live somewhere. And I just think that if there's something that could lower my taxes, even if it's a small amount, that's something that, you know, our district should do because it's for the homeowners in our district and for our benefit.
Now, one thing, the exemption is automatically deducted, right? So why do they have people claim it?
You have to file.
Yeah,
for
we're
it. You don't get
gonna
it
some
automatically.
people
Say this
do
is
not
my
enroll.
Oh, you do it one time, okay,
Yeah,
then I
you do it
don't do
once
the
and it's
other
done.
ones. Yeah,
Stack
okay.
of papers.
You may want to double check and make sure you filed. You may be one of the 78.
Yeah.
Thank you for the additional payments then.
Yeah.
So somebody just texted me, because we're streaming live out there, somebody just texted me another point. And the concern is that if you go out there and look at things the homestead exemption does, one of the things that's listed is protect your homestead from certain types of creditors. And I'm interested in getting legal feedback about that. So what are your thoughts about that?
Well, it's two separate things though. You know, what our homestead exemption, whether we offer it or not, does not impact someone suing for a homestead. You can still claim your homestead and you can still have your homestead exemption for other taxing jurisdictions. So
LISD
Whatever.
has one from.
whatever action we take or don't take has no impact on the legal bearing on the third-party suit to a homeowner.
We're talking about for taxing purposes, the homestead exemptions that a person living at.
Sure. That was just one of the things that came up in our discussion was that they felt there was a certain amount of protection of having a homestead on there.
And they can still have that. The board's decision, one way or the other, has absolutely no impact on the ability of a homeowner to still claim that exemption and designate their home there. So,
There was just zero tax benefit from it, is that what happens?
I don't understand.
So if they can still claim a homestead exemption, but there's no homestead
They
exemption.
don't claim the homestead exemption, they
They
just
claim
claim that
homestead.
it's their
They claim it
homestead.
as their
Gotcha, okay.
homestead, and it's up to each taxing jurisdiction to offer the
I understand,
exemption.
that's
So
what I'm saying. Okay,
homeowner claims the exemption, taxing jurisdictions offer a homestead or choose not to.
Okay.
So
fantastic. Somebody's thinking about the answer real quick. So, okay, no, fantastic, okay. So I'm gonna go back to what I was saying before, that I think, you know, I'm inclined, because there hasn't been a big rally of, way to go, thank you so much for getting a homestead exemption, but there's been a, you know, a small but vocal concerns raised that it's it's more confusing this way than it was before, if nothing else. And you know, perhaps some money over long haul might come out of our you know, our neighbors' pockets. I'm inclined to put it back. I mean, that's my thoughts. I'm open for discussion, but that's you know, I think we've got people who have spoken and they've raised enough concerns.
Has there been anyone who worries that when they sell their house or when someone's looking to buy a house, that the amount of taxes that are charged on the property is a factor? And someone making the decision, she looks at your home price, you're looking at, you're like, man, these taxes are like $7,000 a year, versus if you knock off this amount because your tax rate's lower, is that going to be any factor in someone buying or not buying a house? I mean, generally, I personally don't think that's a big decision maker in people's choices of where to live, that everything else would sell the neighborhood, but if that was, you know.
I don't disagree, and I think if you're looking to live in a nice upscale neighborhood in this area of town, there's certainly some places in Frisco you can go to a little farther out. But there's not a whole lot of places like Castle Hills, so I don't know that, you know, paying 0.77 or 0.63, you know, 0.77 with a homestead exemption or 0.63 without would influence on our buying decisions, which I think goes back to the other point then, which is it worth the consternation that I think we cause our neighbors to remove the homestead exemption?
So back to you, so if we lower the tax rate to where it would be the same, let's say exactly, you wouldn't have to pay $1 extra. You still have a problem with it because people who are renters are gonna get a break, and is that your concern? Because if we fix it such that you don't pay anything extra, What is the concern still?
My concern is y'all have to raise, say, $1 million, and to raise $1 million, you have to, without an exemption, tax everybody $1,000. But if there's an exemption, you tax me $950 and you tax the renter next door $1,050. That's my concern.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So this is, so if we just looked at it for this year, yeah, everything would be nice and level, and you'd have a tax bill of $7,000 at the end of this tax year. But if you look out 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, we need money to run the district. And there's gonna be some, probably small burden, but still a burden placed back on the residents that we could have shifted over to the 1% of the commercial property that we have, and maybe 10% of.
11.5%,
Yeah.
it's not claiming.
Yeah.
Do we know what that amount is? Roughly.
So I think if you look at
the whole district,
I think if you look at the, so I didn't do the math cleanly. Guy and I have discussions about my math abilities quite a bit. But 2.5 million, I want to say that it came out, even if you get away with that altogether, it's like 20,000. It just was not huge amounts of money
over
a year.
250 million.
Exactly. But I say that, and the other side of me says, we kind of make a stink about having to pay for permitting costs of 40,000. So 20,000 is not a ton of money, but it's money, and I think that we try to be careful with the cash. So I don't want to just dismiss it.
So this is what if goes up, okay, I understand. But
And then, let me just remind y'all, there's some place in the middle too. I mean, y'all could decrease that homestead exemption to 10%. If you wanted to do a slight change to where the impact wouldn't be as great. So y'all have some flexibility in whatever decision y'all decide. I need to get something to the Denton County Tax Assessor no later than April 8th.
So I just sent out, I just had this discussion with somebody.
let's put it to the vote.
So I went out and looked about what everybody else in the neighborhood's doing. So 1B, had 15% with a 5,000 minimum. 1C has 0. And there weren't always houses in 1C, but now there are. The golf course villas in 1C. 1D has 8% with a 5,000 minimum. 1E has 2%. 1F has 6%. And 1G has nothing. They're relatively low. I wouldn't expect them anything. So we are, twice as high as the next highest district at 15%. We could put it back. So let me ask you this. So what would be the benefit of making it 10% right now versus the 15% we had before, and not just putting it back at 15%? That's not just to you, that's to everybody in here.
Yeah, my initial response would be that it would lessen the impact. The tax bill that would come out, or the preliminary tax valuation, not quite as much money would be escrowed this year. And, if y'all ultimately want to go to no homestead exemption, do it gradually over a period of time.
I think eventually we'd force Louisville to go to no homestead exemption because they don't have it, but the tax rate's already 43 cents or something like that. It's already pretty low.
So,
Which was what you were doing essentially it's because it's not a financial decision, we're going to make it a break-even budget anyway. So the break-even tax rate would lower it to over about 13% or 13 cents is what we're talking about. So you're dropping it down to where that gap between Louisville and you is somewhere around 20 cents, not the 30-something cents it is now.
Okay. So I'm going to go back and say, the next door, and I know other board members here read next door posts, we're just kind of precluded from everybody commenting at once, so we can walking forum. So I know I'm not the only person who reads these next door posts. I'm going to go back to saying that we've had nobody come back and say, I understand this is great, and I understand what you're doing, thank you for that. We have had a few people, and a couple of very vocal people, one of which that doesn't even live in 1B, but I still think he did a pretty good job laying out some of the points that he wanted to make. So, I would propose that we put it back to 15.
Is that a motion?
Can I make a motion? I'd love to make a motion.
Okay.
So I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second that, I think I agree with what you were saying. So it's $20,000. It's still
It's cash.
It's still cash.